It's wonderful to see you again, Madam Secretary. Let me just say, with regard to the air traffic control proposal, that this is a tough sell.
Yes.
In states like my state of Mississippi, where the small airports are very concerned about where this will leave them. And I think you're going to see this on both sides of the aisle. So the sale needs to be made, and it needs to be made convincingly. What assurances can you give us about the fear of higher airfares and higher fees resulting from this proposal, particularly in light of the fact that the privatized model in Canada and the United Kingdom found that after the first 6 years, in Canada there was a 59% increase, and in the United Kingdom a 30% increase.
I think Canada actually had a 30% decrease in user.
In the United Kingdom, ATC fees rose 30%, according to a study that I've seen. But your testimony is that in fact the fees decreased.
For general aviation, which I know that is an area, is a group that is very concerned
Well,
about
okay.
this.
Let me just say that's something we need to nail down.
Okay.
And folks back home need a comfort level.
Yes.
About what this might result in. What do you say to the statement, and let me turn it into a question of Senator Nelson, about the effect of this on the contract towers? And can you comment on the value of contract towers?
The contract towers are very important to rural America. So let me emphasize again, I understand, and I'm very, very concerned about the impact on rural America. Because I come from a state that is rural, I know that the majority of the members of this committee come from rural areas and rural states. So I take into advisement very seriously this concern about how to address the rural issues. The ironic thing is the contract towers are actually much better if the governance system were separate. For example,
how do we know that?
Contract towers are the first to go in any budgetary cutbacks. When we had sequestration, when there is CRs, when there's uncertain budgetary demands, as Senator Nelson mentioned, it's a matter of money, and the contract towers are always the first to go. And yet they're so important to rural America, so that if the air traffic control system were to be separated and it were able to have much steadier budget stream, budget scenario, the threat to the contract towers actually drop, and that would be very good for rural America.
Well, we'll be visiting about this over time. Let me shift in the minute and a half I have left. We had testimony from the Air Force yesterday about the global shortage of pilots.
Yes.
And certainly that affects the civilian sector too, here in the United States, and with all of our allies. Can you comment, and do you have any specific recommendations about what your department might do in working with all concerned entities to address the pilot shortage? And do you acknowledge that there is
well, the 1,500-hour rule was put in by Congress, and it has set a much higher standard for the number of hours, obviously, that a potential pilot has to attain before they can enter into service. So that's really an act of Congress, and there's very little that the administration or the executive branch can do about that.
Well, let me say there's a larger problem, though, and I would direct your attention to the problem that General Goldfein mentioned yesterday, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, there is just a shortage across the board.
Yeah.
In the military, in the Air Force, in the Navy, in the United Kingdom, in the Air Forces, and also among the commercial pilots. There's a overall shortage, which we and our friends are going to have to deal with. So I would simply ask you to go back to the department and see if we can, on the civilian side and the military side, be part of a solution there, because it is a serious problem.
Well, if I may, as the former Secretary of Labor, what we're talking really about is a skills gap. And there's a larger issue about a skills gap in our economy. And so I share your concerns about the pilots and the shortage thereof and where we're going to get them in the future, and I'd love to work with you on that.
Thank you, ma'am.